Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Pally, and I'm the race director for Alaskaman Extreme Triathlon. And I wanted to take just a moment to go over the mandatory and recommended gear that we have for this year's race. This is the extremetries.com website, which is a company that was founded by myself and my business partner, Tony Sapp, in an effort to consolidate our three events that we have, which is Alaskaman, Island, which is Iceland, and Aloha Man, which is on the big island of Hawaii. So this website serves as a way to not only consolidate everything, but it really helps us to manage everything better as well. It's your one stop for everything you need for our events. If you're doing one or more events in a year, or you're just trying to stop by and figure out if this is for you and read up on the details of everything, this is the place. So today, again, we're going to go over Alaska's mandatory gear. We do have a YouTube channel that has more webinars like this one that go over course info, support, and mandatory gear, among other things. So we do these videos not only on separate topics, but we do them for each of our three events as well. So definitely check out our YouTube channel, subscribe to that if you can, and yeah. So let's jump in here. I'm going to scroll down to mandatory gear under the Alaska heading. All right, guys. This is going to be a pretty short webinar, but I just wanted to go over, because we do get a lot of questions on these, and we can't always answer every single question that we've gotten over the years on our website. The page would just be too long. So the first thing we'll talk about is the mandatory swim gear. So be sure to go look over the course maps, and be sure to also look at that webinar, because we go in depth and go over everything for the course during that. But what I'll say about the swim is that since we moved it from July to June, it is undoubtedly going to be quite a bit colder. So I would say worst case, the swim is hovering probably around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. It could be a little colder, it could be a little warmer, but I'm going to just go out on a limb there and say that that's going to be the temperature. I have monitored it the last couple of years going in, and about a month before, maybe a little more, and that tends to be where the temperature falls leading into what we had in July when I looked at it in June. So we'll have a more accurate number on that after this year's event, but given how cold that event is, wetsuits are definitely mandatory, and there's no sleeveless allowed. The wetsuit has got to come up to your neck, your wrists, and your ankles. We go with the 5 mil rule on the thickness for that, but we do allow you to wear, if you have some type of thermal neoprene, something for your chest underneath, you can wear that underneath and a wetsuit over top of that. We also recommend gloves, but the thing about gloves is that if they don't fit perfectly, they tend to get waterlogged, and they definitely start to drag in the water. So we recommend them if you can find a pair that fits you well and you like swimming with them. They're not mandatory at all. Just know that if you don't swim with the non-web gloves, your fingers are going to be cold. They're going to be numb. You will have to form a fist a few times during the swim to really just get your fingers moving again. That's not unordinary. And you're going to be okay. Your fingers will recover from it when you get out of the water. That really isn't going to affect your swim all that much. But what we do have as a mandatory item are booties or socks, whatever you want to call them. So the same way with the gloves, those socks and booties that are mandatory, there's two reasons for those. But first of all, you have to make sure they fit. When I competed in Norseman and Keltman, I had a pair of booties, and they were split toes. So they stayed on my foot a lot better. They just had a split between the big toe and the rest of the toes. And that helped really for me it helped to feel the water better. The socks, booties didn't slip around as much. So I recommend those. I know Orca's got a pair of those. I have worn ones that don't have that, and they seem to definitely slide around more, even though I thought they fit better. So it all depends on what you like. It all depends on what fits, but definitely get in the water and test this stuff out, because if you're not testing it out and you get in that water with it first time in Alaska, odds are you're going to find out something isn't quite right. So just test it out, and if you have to send it back and get a new pair, or you just don't like it at all, that's fine. But keep in mind, gloves are not mandatory, and booties or socks, whatever you want to call them, those are mandatory, the neoprene ones. Now, the second reason, besides the warmth of them, is that when you get out of the water, there may be things like sharp rocks. There could be some worn out wood. There could be whatever. It is going to be a lot rougher than some of the triathlons you've done in the past. So we find that with that extra barrier there on your feet, it definitely helps people. We haven't had, knock on wood, we haven't had any injuries yet as far as when you exit what you're standing on. We do try to make it as safe as possible, but you are in an area that is not really made for triathlon. So, yeah, just know that they're there for your protection on your feet as well. In the water, obviously, the only other thing that's really mandatory would be the goggles. You definitely want to have those, as well as a neoprene cap. So we give you a silicone cap at Alaska. It's kind of a souvenir thing, but it also serves so that we can tell who's in the race. We can see you guys. It's a bright cap, bright orange, but that is not warm enough, even though it's silicone, to protect your head and really give you some of that warmth. So we definitely, as a mandatory item, you have to have a neoprene swim cap. So the thing with those is fit. I personally find that the shape of my head is a little bigger, so I went with a neoprene cap that had a Velcro adjustment around the chin because I found the ones that didn't have that were a little too tight on me, especially when I was breathing. So it just all depends. If you have a smaller head, a shorter face, then those tend to fit fine. If you have a longer face and slightly bigger head, I would definitely recommend the Velcro. Again, just test them out. Make sure you get something you like. But so you've got your wetsuit, you've got your goggles, you've got your swim cap, you've got your booties, and those are all mandatory. The gloves, not mandatory, but recommended as long as you can find a pair you like and that fit. All right. So one last note, actually, on the goggles. I personally like to bring a medium tinted pair, maybe a blue, and then I bring the mirrored ones that are really dark, and then I bring a clear pair. And it all, excuse me, it all depends on the day. It depends on if it's a clear day. Obviously, I'm going to not wear the clear ones. I'm probably going to go with the medium or even the darker tint. If it's a cloudy day, I would go medium tint to clear. And if it's definitely dark out there, I would wear those clear ones so I have maximum visibility. So just keep that in mind. And I mean, I would bring those and make that decision just before I went in the water. You won't have support down at the swim start, but we will have an area where you can drop stuff, and then we'll have it for you either at the end of the race or the next day at the brunch. So keep that in mind. And if you were to have goggles that got lost along the way, extra pair that you didn't bring in with you, in the scheme of things, it's a small expense based on, the time, the effort, the money you guys are putting into this event anyway. Just make sure you do what you have to do to have the best day possible. And it sounds funny, but tinted goggles or clear goggles can really aid in that and you can have a really good swim because you made the right choice there. Mandatory bike gear. So going onto the bike, obviously you have to have a helmet. We realized that one of the USA Triathlon sanctioning rules, which allows us to get our insurance, is kind of a pain in the butt for anyone not from the US. We get a lot of people complaining about this every year. Unfortunately, it is out of our control. You must, in your helmet, have a US CPSC inspection sticker. Now, those stickers, they say CPSC on them from other countries, but they don't say US. So we do realize that some other countries that inspect them actually have higher standards than we do in the US. That isn't the point. The point is USA Triathlon knows the standards of inspection in the United States. They're comfortable with that. So are the insurers that they have. And for us to say, oh, well, this country does a better job inspecting, they should be allowed. In theory, yeah, that makes sense. But the US and the USA Triathlon Committee, as well as the insuring party, are not going to go and check out the standards of every single company, especially if they're in the business of insuring in the United States, and especially if it's just for triathlon. So try to be understanding of that. I personally don't like the rule, but our sanctioning and our insurance depends on us upholding that rule. So you guys know about that ahead of time. It says it on the site. It's never changed it in going on 3 years. So if you're coming from outside the US or you bought a European helmet and you're inside the US, whatever it is, just know you have to have that sticker. So I would say that if you don't have it, try to find someone in the US if you're not from here that you can borrow one from. There's plenty of groups, Alaska Tri and all kinds of other cycling groups that you could be part of. You could ask people in our group. We have, I think, going on almost 1,000 strong in our group for Alaska. You could ask to borrow someone's helmet there. I mean, worst case scenario, you could buy one. If I know that's probably not ideal, but you do have to have one, and we will look at it. So just know that. Doesn't have to be an aero helmet. I mean, any helmet's really okay if it has that sticker. Obviously, we don't want helmets that have been in wrecks. If you get in any wreck ever, you need to throw your helmet out and get a new one. And we definitely recommend that if your helmet's 2, 3, 4 years old, that you get a new one. The foam tends to kind of wear down on its own after a while. So just keep that in mind, guys. So another absolutely mandatory item is a high visibility reflective top. And I actually have some pictures here that I picked out. So let me pull these up real quick, guys. So this is a picture of the sticker I was talking about. And most of your helmets should have this in here regardless of where you're from. But this sticker right here, you could see it says US in front of everything else. So it's hard to see, but it does say it there. If you're from Europe, then you're going to have a similar sticker, but it probably won't say US. So it just needs to say that. Got to have a helmet that abides by that rule. So that's what it looks like. That's what to look for. Let's look at, I'm going to give you an example of the high vis, bright, reflective tops that we're talking about on the road. So let's be clear on one thing, guys. The roads in Alaska are few and far between. Most of them are highways with little offshoot roads to get to, the towns and villages along the way. But they have major highways, and there's not very many of them. And so there's a lot of cars on those. When I say a lot of cars, I mean being from Houston, now living in the Detroit area, it's not really the same as a lot of cars in these urban areas. But for their standards there, it's a lot of cars. And I mean, it's a fair enough amount where having a high visibility vest of some kind that's reflective is a huge advantage out there. Keep in mind, these are 2-lane roads. They're not 4-lane roads. There's no separation in the middle, whether it's a turn lane or a median. There's none of that. They're 2-lane highways with shoulders that are pretty big for a majority of it, but some sections have a lot of winding areas, and they do not have much of a shoulder at all. It's not a majority of the course, but there are sections like that. And our rules as far as lights and high visibility stuff, reflective things, are more meant for those areas, but they are required for the entire course because every little bit helps, and we need to do everything we can to make you as safe as possible. This sport is inherently dangerous, and it does come with a lot of risk no matter what you do. But we want to give you every tool we can to keep you as safe as we can out there. So this top here on the left, I've gotten a lot of, not this specific top, but tops like this, I've gotten a lot of emails about like, oh, it's got bright blue, it's got red, is this good enough? No, this is not good enough. It's nowhere even remotely close to good enough. I have driven up behind so many people during the race, and I know what is visible from a long ways off in clear weather, in foggy weather, and this is not visible in any of that weather. Once you get close, it's a little more visible, but I want people to see you from a distance. So some of these examples I have are ridiculous. I'll go with the ridiculous ones first. There's a couple here. This is just like a basic construction vest they would wear. And so are these. So these are huge. They're pretty insane and ridiculous, and some of them are cheap. And I understand if you guys have spent enough on this trip and enough on registration and your training and all of that, and you want to go cheap, I get it. So these types of vests, or even this one here, they do the job. They meet our requirements. They're reflective. They're super bright, but know that they are not going to be aero at all. This one's going to flap in the wind. It's going to be huge. It's not going to be that comfortable. You may not even know it's there if it's big enough, but the bigger it gets, the more trouble you're going to have with the aerodynamics. If you don't care about any of that, you want to save on costs, by all means, just do these, okay? But most people are going to go with something like this vest, this orange cycling vest. It's sleeveless. I will say that in June on the bike, it's probably going to be quite a bit colder than it was in July. So if you go sleeveless, it would make sense that you have some type of cycling jersey on underneath that's long sleeve, or you have arm warmers or something. But this will do the trick for being reflective and bright. So will this one, this yellow one you see here. This pink one's fine. But notice the theme behind what I'm showing you is very bright neon. Red is not going to be, even if they call it neon, it's really not going to be. Because when red turns neon, it actually starts to look orange, and then it's acceptable. But this red on this vest to the left is not acceptable. Nowhere even close to that's acceptable. Here's another one that probably fits a little bit bigger, but that's fine. This one's kind of a minimal approach, but as you can see, it's going to show a big strip of orange on your front, on your back, your shoulders. It's got reflective stuff. It's going to be relatively snug fitting. So, excuse me. So is this one underneath, this yellow one. And then this is a version of that as well that's maybe a little thinner, but it's got reflective areas and it's really bright. Now this blue one here, I can't see the back of this. This would be the bare minimum for how bright a blue one has to be. I'd prefer for sure that you have a yellow, an orange. The yellow is called safety green sometimes too, but the yellow, the orange, the pink even. This blue I might be okay with if I could see the back. They didn't have the back online. But if the back looks like the front and it's got a couple big strips of reflective, I'd probably let it go. But I'm going to tell you right now that I would really recommend that you go with this other stuff. This is not the time for you to go bare minimum, for you to try to skate by with something. This is not something we put out there to punish you guys. This is out there so that cars can see you and you don't get hurt, or you have the least risk possible out there. I mean, you can get hurt at any time doing anything, obviously, but we want to give you every tool and every suggestion we can to help you stay as safe as you can. And if it were me, I wouldn't wear this blue one. I'd wear one of these other ones that I've recommended. In fact, for Norseman and Keltman, I did. I wore this stuff. Keltman later in the race, I took it off. There just wasn't traffic out there. But you're going to see traffic the entire race. It's not going to be constant every second going by you. But when it is, it'll be close enough where, you're going to be glad you had something like this on. So I think that gets my point across. We won't, beat this dead horse too much. But if you have anything even close to this, you're okay. I skipped over the suspenders. The only time these suspenders are okay, because technically they're bright and they're reflective and people had them on last year. But the only time this is okay is when your entire kit is bright. If you had on this top to the left that I said was not okay, if you had this on and then you had these suspenders on as well, I would let that go, because this top is bright. It's definitely not bright enough on its own and it doesn't have reflective qualities. But when you add the suspenders, the brightness and the reflectiveness, you're good to go. But if this top was dark colors or all black or anything like that, this is not bright enough on its own. And this is not enough for the suspenders. So bright, non-reflective tops, colorful with suspenders, okay. I have worn the suspenders. I've worn the other stuff. I'll tell you right now, this pink one, the overall design, this orange one, and these two yellow ones are probably going to be the most comfortable. For some added warmth, which I would recommend as well. These top two, this orange one and this yellow one, are good as well. But anything that looks like that's acceptable, guys. And if you have any questions, post it up in the group or private message us and we'll check it out. But if you buy something exactly like I have right here on screen, please don't ask me if it's okay. You know it's okay. If it's a big variation and you really wonder, then reach out for sure. Okay. Lights, you've got to have a bright white on the front, constant, and a blinking red on the back. And that blinking red's also got to be constant. So the blinking red on the back's an easy thing. I've had bright ones like that before, and one like watch battery in it or whatever, and that thing lasted. It lasted not only the whole race, but I left it on an accident on the trip back. We stayed in Rome for a week on our first trip over to Europe. Came home, unpacked it like 5 days later. I swear that thing was on for like almost 3 weeks and it didn't burn out. So I'm not too worried about the red blinking lights on the back, but I will say don't go as cheap as you can. The cheaper ones have a smaller red blinker and it's not as visible, especially if it's kind of a hazy day. Spend a little bit more at least. Go with the big, bright red blinking ones. I don't know if I'd go with the Surface or Cirrus or whatever they're called, the USB chargeable ones. They're great in theory and they're bright, but I've had those things die out on me for no reason at all. Keep in mind, most of you are going to be on the bike anywhere from 5 hours to like 8 hours or whatever. And so the ones that charge up usually don't last that whole time. The medium size to large size ones that take like a regular like watch battery or something, the CR2s, I think, on some of them, those are going to last a long time. Test them out, stand way back, sunset or at sunrise or when it's a hazy day around your house, and just make sure you can see them from a long ways back. Last year, there were some I saw, I swear, through the fog, like it seemed like a mile away. And then some of them, when it was clear, I was right up on them and I could barely see it. So again, this is for your own safety. Make sure you've got, I would not cheap out on the lights. The white light on front, that's going to be a chargeable one. I don't know if I've ever seen one you could swap the battery out. It was always the lithium ion rechargeable ones. And so I think that you may have to make sure you have two of those with you if you have any worry at all that it's not going to make it through. A lot of those will last 4 or 5 hours. And if yours, obviously, most of you are going to be on the bike longer than 5 hours, that might run out. And it's not an excuse if it runs out. You need to have your support look at it. If you can't see it, every time you go to stop or you go to get a bottle or whatever from your support along the way, they need to tell you if it's out and you need to switch. No excuses, guys. It's for safety. Front white and back blinking red all the time. All right. Mechanical supplies. So we're not going to have any sag out there at all. In a perfect world, Chain Reaction said they might be out there with some SAG vehicles, but we definitely do not want you to rely on that. And I'm telling you that again and again and again, every time I can. Do not rely on us. We are telling you we will not have anything and they will not be out there. If they are, great. Icing on the cake to help out if anything, if there's extra debris on the road somewhere or something and it's getting a whole lot of flats, it's great to have them at that point. But we don't want you to rely on us or them for anything. That's part of this. That's why you have support out there too. So what I would recommend is definitely carry a couple canisters on you of air, bike lever or levers, patch kit, the spare little bag that you hang behind your seat. Make sure that's loaded up so you can take care of 2 flats if you were to get them. They're not particularly common out there, but they do happen. And the roads they do have a lot of debris early in the year when everything melts because of all this snow in Alaska. And DOT's been great about sweeping the road off. But there's still some gravel out there in spots. It's not a gravel road, but it's just, like anything, a little bit of debris on the edge from place to place. So just make sure you're prepared. I would say bring along some Allen wrenches, just a couple that'll fit most of the fittings on your bike. That way you can adjust things like your seat post and your aero bars if they were to drop, derailleur adjustments, things like that. Anything that you think you would need maybe to make some quick adjustments and not have to worry about your support coming back for you. Then what you maybe want to do is have a toolbox or something in your support vehicle. I don't know if that's necessary, but I always err on the side of caution. So load up the support vehicle with whatever you want, more flat changing stuff, supplies, maybe even a bike pump. And I'm going to skip down to the medical kit because the same thing kind of goes for that. I'd have some basic bandages on you, Band-Aids, maybe a little gauze stuffed in, maybe with the spare kit if there's room. But what I would definitely have is a more comprehensive first aid kit in your support vehicle. We do have medical out there. It is a long distance for them to cover. Any severe cases, we would obviously be calling 911, and you should immediately as well. But anything that we can handle, we will definitely help with that. Any basic stuff that's not life-threatening. And then, any minor abrasions or anything like that that you guys may have without us being there, you should be able to treat that yourself. And then, when you see us, if you need additional treatment, please, by all means, let us know and we'll help you. But be responsible for little things like that and have a bigger first aid kit in your car along with the mechanical stuff. So hydration and nutrition. So you should be able to leave T1 on your bike with enough hydration and nutrition to get through about, I would call it 35 to 40 miles. That's more than a third of the bike. Yeah. But we don't need anyone stopping in the first 20 miles. There's no reason for that. A lot of you are going to be, an hour, maybe an hour and a half at most in the 20 miles. When you go out on training rides, you definitely carry enough with you for, anywhere from 2 to 3, even 4 hours. There should be no reason you can't carry that on this. And so we need you. The main reason for that too is just not only to alleviate some of the congestion that would be caused by support vehicles all stopping way too soon before they spread out and the athletes spread out, but the bigger reason is that Moose Pass gets very narrow. Now the speed limit goes down, so that helps. But it gets very narrow as far as the shoulders go down to being just inches wide instead of feet wide. It's a winding, narrow road, and especially on foggy mornings, it can be a little treacherous. So we want to get all those support cars through that before most of the athletes are. We don't want anyone trying to pull off or slow down in that area, and that is pretty much gone after mile 30, 31. So that's why we also don't allow support in that area. You need to carry enough with you. If it's me, I'm carrying enough for at least 2 hours, at least coming out of T2, and then just plan. And we'll go over support logistics and everything on the next meeting. But just plan on meeting them and refilling if you need to up the road, past Moose Pass, which is like I said, 31, maybe 32 miles up. So carry enough on you at that. And, I don't know, I'm not going to tell you guys whether to put your calories in liquid form, all of them, or to have other stuff. If it's me, I definitely have a variety of things, all of which I've tested out prior. And, you can carry it in the back of a cycling jersey pocket. I would recommend coming out of the water that you put on cycling shorts and a cycling jersey. It has more pockets. It's a little more comfortable, and they tend to be a little warmer than Tri-Gear does, especially if the weather's cold that morning. You want to think about long-term how that's going to affect you. So anyway, going down through here, cell phones, you have to have your cell phone with you at all times, fully charged. We're going to talk more about the app that we give you for tracking that you have to have enabled. It's not hard to do, but just make sure that you are having a full charge on your cell phone, and the battery and the cord. Sorry about the pop-ups, guys. I've had a few of them during this. I don't know how to turn them off on this Apple computer. I think I turn them off and then they pop right back up, and it puts their own news feed and their Twitter and all that stuff up there. And so sorry about that. But anyway, so on with the cell phones. If you're not from this country, I think I said this in the course meeting, make sure that you look at possibly swapping out your SIM card. The SIM cards, you can get them. I think Walmart has them and some other places, and it's definitely costly, but it's a lot more cost effective to do it that way. If you swap that out and it's a US SIM card, then it's going to be cheaper. So the cell phone will have to be on and logged into that program at all times. Support can help you with that out of T1. And that is our way to track you. That's support's way to track you. There are some no coverage zones. And if you go to our course page, you can see where it actually shows that. You click on whatever your carrier is, and it'll show you if you have coverage in those areas or not. So if the cell phone doesn't maintain battery very well, there's lots of external little batteries you can buy. I think in this day and age, you can get small ones that should almost recharge your entire phone. And I saw some for like $10, $15 the other day. So you could get 2, 3 of those if you had to, and cords, and you wrap it around it. It sounds complicated. It's not. It's quick, and it tucks right in the back of a cycling pocket. So no excuses there, guys. You can always keep a charged cell phone. And same goes with the light on the front of the bike. I mean, it sounds a little ridiculous, but if you can't get another light, that one's running out, you could always somehow rig it up so that there's a battery and it's plugged in. And again, it sounds crazy, but if you have to do it, you have to do it. That light's got to stay on. So just another idea. I already went over the first aid kit, and then here's something that was new last year, but it worked out. So we changed our course last year and included 13 miles coming in from Bird Creek. You turn off the highway and you come back in on the bike trail. So in doing that, we have to stay out of arrow position because there's a lot of blind turning corners and things like that. It's probably going to be a little bit slower speed. The wind tends to pick up. There is some climbing, but we just want you to be safe. We don't want you going around some type of blind corner and all of a sudden you hit someone, or you just wipe out because you took it too fast and you were in arrow. So in saying that, my point is that before you pass Alaska Highway on your way out to mile 100 where you'll turn, we don't allow support. There's no reason for it. You're in the last little bit of the race. They can turn down Alaska Highway. They need to get to T2 before you and set all your stuff up. So in doing that, the last stop they make, which is approximately mile 88, if they choose to make it the last possible minute, or the last stop whenever it is before that, you need to make sure you have bear spray on you. Now, you can carry it out of T1 if you want the whole time so you don't forget. You can get it at mile 30 or 40, wherever you want. I don't care. As long as you have bear spray on you, on the bike, and you get it somewhere from either T1 all the way through 88. I don't care where you get it, but after 88, you better have it on you, because on the path, there were bears last year. Now, they didn't attack anyone. They weren't aggressive. Everyone was educated. They tended to do the right thing. I had one person call and freak out a little bit, but everyone did the right thing, and there were no issues at all. We'll go over wildlife in another meeting and all of that, but just know that bear spray, people laughed at me last year when I required that, but that bear spray is necessary. It's for your own protection. So carry that on you. And the good thing is you'll have that on you going into T2. Now, if you change all your, apparel going in there and you put some other stuff on, then you got to switch it anyway. But at least it's in your mind, oh, I got to grab that bear spray. So look at our wildlife section so you know more about that. We're going to have somebody that's local do some demonstrations on bear spray, and we'll have some of that available. So all right, moving on to the run. Obviously, the bear spray I just talked about is mandatory for the entire run. You never know when you're going to see a bear. You could see it anywhere on this entire course. They actually had some bears down in Seward years back, not when we did the event, but I saw some videos of bears swimming in Resurrection Bay. It's extremely rare, but I did catch some videos of it. So just know that they could be anywhere. You would like to think that they're in the more remote sections of the mountain or whatever, but I was in Girdwood last year, and driving down the road, I saw them digging through trash cans. So they can be anywhere. Hydration, nutrition packs, same kind of deal. As long as you have calories coming in, I'm happy. Whatever works for you, but you need to be able to carry them. Remember, there are only water slash Gatorade slash whatever you want to call them stops with some food and gels and things. Those are only at T2, mile 7.5. Mile 17 or 17 and a half, whatever it is there when you return back to T2 before you go on the mountain. And the last one you'll have is at about 20 and a half miles at the top of the first climb of the mountain. And after that, whether you do high or low course, you don't have anything for about the next 6.5 miles. So just keep that in mind, guys. You need to carry enough with you so that you can make it between each of those stops. Now, if you have support, they have to carry their own as well. Whether that's camelbacks with pockets, whether it's fuel belts and somehow you stuff it in and you have a lot of pockets on your apparel, whatever it is, just make sure you have adequate nutrition and hydration. Now, you can also, if you have support the whole time, you got to carry your own, but you could also load them up with extra, and they can mule it around for you, and that's the part of the reason that you have them as well. Cell phones, again, mandatory on this. If they run out of juice, just an extra battery, wrap a cord around it, you're good to go. Let's see. So as far as apparel goes, guys, you're going to have to, when you go on the mountain, your support and you have to have with you, whether it's in a backpack, in a bag, you somehow stuff in a pocket, you have to have a hat of some kind, any kind. It can be a beanie you can get super small, wrapped up and folded up, gloves, extra pair of socks, long sleeve, lightweight, water resistant jacket or base layer because of the possibility of bad weather. Now, all of those things, I don't think any of them have been needed in the past 2 years, but it's also been good weather, and it's been in July. This is June, and again, the weather could be a factor. So I can guarantee you it's going to be substantially colder on that mountain. You're probably going to be wearing the gloves. I would say that because of the snow, you might have some melting on the shoes. So if your feet get cold and wet, the socks will come in handy. Long sleeve will be great. If it rains, it's going to be a problem. So all of that stuff is going to be a much bigger factor this year, I predict. So basic first aid kit. I would say carry whatever you did on the bike or something similar. If you don't want to pull it out of your bike bag and put it on you on the run, then just have another one lined up. I would carry a little bit more with you on the run. Because on the bike, unless you fall off your bike, you're probably not going to get injured. On the run, there are so many steps you could tumble on this thing, from very minor injuries to more severe. But the more you have on you, the better, especially if you have support for the first part. And when it's mandatory, the second part, just carry a bunch of that with you, guys. So a whistle and a compass. Your cell phone, if you want to carry a different compass, that's fine. That'd probably make me happier. But if your cell phone has a compass, you download a compass app, that works too. because that should be on and charged the whole time, so you'll have your compass. A whistle. You do need a whistle. I don't care if it's a really nice one or a cheap one. They all tend to be very loud if you blow into them really hard. So that should be good. So that is to alert people to where you are. Maybe make noise out there, whatever the reason is for that, as far as if that's to alert wildlife, if that's to alert us to where you are, or if your support gets too far ahead and they need to come back, you could blow that, whatever. Okay, guys, but those are the things that are mandatory. What I would say, one thing that's mandatory that's not on here is you have to have some type of sunglasses or face shield or something on the bike helmet. It can be hooked into the bike helmet. It can be a separate pair of glasses or whatever. And then on the run, you have to have the same, some type of eye protection. And if it's a cloudy day or if it's really dark, then you can change it out and do clear lenses. I don't care, but you have to have that. So we need to add those in. I don't know why it's not on here. What I would say for the run, for shoes, I would definitely go with some trail running shoes. Since we switched it last year, the first year it was kind of even parts trail and pavement. This time it's less than 6 miles of the 27 is pavement, and the rest is all either gravel or rock or bigger rocks or dirt, grass, snow. So I would definitely have some stuff with traction. I would plan on maybe, and this is recommended, you don't have to, but I would definitely do trail shoes the entire time of some kind. I think the grippier the better, probably the stiffer the better there, and also look into possibly getting yak tracks or anything similar, which is basically it's like a rubber band that goes around the bottom of your shoe and has little spikes that come out of it, and that's meant for some added traction. Now, if you have trail shoes, you won't need that like on the dirt sections and the rock sections. That's kind of built into the trail shoe, but there could be some ice and snow sections because it's late June and not July, and not all the snow is melted by then, and especially on the mountain, that may come in very handy. You may not need it, but you may. So I would recommend that. And then everyone always asks about poles. So here's the deal on poles. If you're going to get them, I would get retractable ones that are carbon, spend the money. If you're into this kind of thing and you like doing ultra running, or you know you're going to do more X tries, you will use them at some point. I have climbed that mountain, both sides of it, countless times over the past few years in sections or all together. And I will tell you that I have never used poles and been okay. I am good at climbing, and I'm good at the flat parts, which are few and far between, but I am absolutely terrible at descending the mountain. And it's for a number of reasons, but I do think that if I had poles and I descended that mountain, I could go quite a bit faster. You can load a lot of your weight onto them, so it actually gives your thighs, your quads some relief coming down the mountain, which a lot of people said is the hardest part. It just tears you up. And it also gives you a little bit more support and some better, it helps you be quicker and have even better footing, it seems like. So, if you don't want to use them for anything but the downhills, you'll have to carry them with you. So you could fold them up, put them in your pack, or you could give them to your support. That's what they're there for. So those are my recommendations on the run. We went over the bike and the swim. The one thing I forgot about that I just remember on the swim is that in the cold water, there's been people that say it doesn't help. I think it helps for sure. So my personal recommendation is either Vaseline or Aquaphor, something that forms a barrier between the water and your skin for any exposed area of your face or your hands. If you don't wear gloves, anything that's exposed, I would put that on before you get in the water. It will wear off. It does help initially until you're definitely used to it. And some of the times it lasts the whole swim. The other thing is hoods. We've gotten that question. I forgot to address that. Hoods are allowed. You can wear hoods. They're not mandatory, mainly because they're huge. And I wore one during the practice swim at Keltman, and I couldn't stand it. I'd rather be numb and be freezing than wear a hood. For me personally, it's fine when I'm looking, straight down, but when I have to rotate to the side, it's super restrictive on both the breathing and the motion and the flexibility, and I couldn't stand it. But for some of you, it may work. So I guess that's all the equipment that I can really think of here, guys. If you have any questions, please, by all means, let us know and post to the groups. There's lots of recommendations out there. One thing I did pull up here is This is what's called an ultra band. So the run down Crow Creek Road could be dusty. Last year it wasn't, but it could be extremely dusty. I would recommend having one of these on you if it's not just around your neck or on your head as a headband. These fit over your head, much like a shirt would. And again, you can wear them as a headband, as just around your neck, or you can put them over your mouth and nose if there's any dusty section until that goes away. So they are really multi-purpose and they're great. And I brought this up on Head Sweats. You could buy them here, but we also have an Alaskaman one and a Island Ultra Band for sale in our store if you want to check that out. I don't recommend right now anything as far as a brand specifically for the swim gear. I'm going to show you Blue 70 because they have some thermal gear. I'm hit or miss whether or not the thermal versus regular makes any difference. I've used them both. I like them both, but I don't notice a huge difference. So there's the skull cap they have, the swim gloves, the socks, and then they have webbed gloves, but remember, those are not allowed. So these are some of the accessories. And then to be fair, Roka just pulled up their website. And again, they've got the cap, but they don't have the gloves or the booties. But they have a huge selection of wetsuits, just like any wetsuit manufacturer is going to have. But one last thing about wetsuits. Wetsuits are definitely the type of thing, in my opinion, that you want to spend money on. I would not go with the cheapest wetsuit. If you're a fast swimmer, you don't tend to get cold that much, and you know you're going to be out of that water really quick. Your heart rate's probably going to be a little higher. You might be warmer because of that as well. Then you might not run into any issues. You might be okay with the mid-range, cost-wise mid-range or even cheap wetsuit. I still don't recommend it. The higher-end wetsuits, you don't have to go ridiculous. You don't need, a $1,200 wetsuit or anything like that. But the ones that are at least slightly more money to the more expensive ones, they're that way for a reason. Now, a certain amount of that cost obviously is the inflation, the profit from it. But overall, the reason they're more expensive than other suits is because they offer more. They're thicker, they're more flexible, they're insulated, whatever it is, they are better. You are going to get what you pay for. And at the end of the day, if you're thinking about, I'm going to save a little bit here, save a little bit there, you're already putting so much into this, guys. Why not give yourself every tool to reach that finish line successfully and have the time of your life? If you got into that water and you got so cold and you knew at the end you didn't make that swim because the wetsuit was not good enough, if you knew that, how would you feel? Just think about that, guys, when you're buying this stuff. So don't go overboard. I know you guys have already probably broke the bank on this, but definitely think about it before you buy the cheapest stuff is all I'm saying. So thanks for listening. This ran a little bit longer than I wanted for this one, but I definitely appreciate you guys listening into all this and watching it. And if you have any questions, let us know. Post in the group, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks, guys.